The whole thing snapped into place at the exact second Daphne laughed. Not the soft, polite laugh she gave me at home, but the loud, sparkling one she used to save for rare moments. Except today, she gave it to him. I wasn't even supposed to be at that cafe. I only went because I'd left my wallet in her car the night before and Uber prices were insane. I saw her through the window before she saw me, her hand wrapped around that overpriced caramel drink, shoulders relaxed, eyes bright in a way they hadn't been around me in months. And across from her sat Evan, the coworker I'd heard exactly one unimportant comment about. He's new. That's it. Nothing else. But apparently new was enough for her to tilt her head at him like he hung the moon. I didn't walk in right away. I stood outside like an idiot, watching her ignore the buzzing phone in her hand. My call. She glanced at the screen, pressed the side button, and went right back to listening to him talk. I swear she leaned forward as if every word he said deserved a museum spotlight. When I finally stepped in, no one noticed. Not her. Not him. Not the three colleagues around them. I just stood there, clutching her forgotten wallet, waiting for my wife to look up. She didn't. Evan cracked another joke, something about the company's rebrand failing harder than his dating life, and Daphne literally covered her mouth to keep from snorting. She brushed his arm when she laughed. I've been with her 7 years. She hasn't touched me like that in the last 3. When I set the wallet on the edge of the table, she finally jerked her head up, surprised, like a teacher catching a student snooping where he shouldn't be. Oh, Nolan, you didn't tell me you were coming. Right. Because getting my own wallet apparently needed scheduling. I mumbled something, I don't even know what, because my throat felt tight and I didn't trust my voice not to shake. And while I stood there, trying to look normal, she slipped right back into her conversation with him. I might as well have been delivering mail. I walked out. I didn't even sit down. I just turned and left before the humiliation finished spreading through my chest. But here's the part that still messes with me. Not even 30 seconds after I stepped outside, her chair scraped back so violently I heard it through the cafe window. That was the moment she realized who she was losing. I didn't expect her to follow me. Honestly, I hoped she wouldn't. I didn't want to deal with whatever half-hearted excuse she'd slapped together to make it all look normal. But the second I turned the corner and crossed the street, I heard it, the sound of rushed footsteps and her voice, breathless, calling my name like she was the one being abandoned. Nolan, wait. I kept walking. Not fast, not dramatic, just steady. I didn't want to turn around, but she grabbed my sleeve near the elbow like she used to when we were still affectionate. The gesture felt out of place now, clumsy, like she was mimicking a version of herself from years ago. What are you doing? She asked, her tone more irritated than apologetic. Why would you just leave? I looked her dead in the eye and said, you made it pretty clear I wasn't supposed to be there. She opened her mouth like she had a response ready, but nothing came out. Just a pause. Then came the classic. Don't be so dramatic, it was just coffee. We were all just relaxing. Right? Relaxing. With your hand on his arm and your husband standing there like an afterthought. She rolled her eyes. Rolled them. Like I was being unreasonable for not enjoying the sight of my wife lighting up for another man. Evan's just friendly, she snapped. God, Nolan, why do you always do this? Why do you turn every interaction I have into some kind of accusation? That hit harder than it should have. Because she wasn't wrong. I had become more suspicious lately. Not because I wanted to be, but because I'd seen the signs. The locked phone, the vague texts, the sudden need for space when I tried to cuddle. And now, the public performance, my wife showing a version of herself I hadn't seen in years, but giving it to someone else. I could feel it in my chest, the ache that tells you the problem didn't start today. Today just pulled the curtain back. Daphne, I said, barely holding my voice steady. When was the last time you looked at me the way you looked at him just now? She didn't answer. She didn't even deny it. She just blinked, once, then twice, like she'd been caught in a place she didn't expect me to see. I stepped back. I hoped the coffee was worth it. And then I left her standing there, on that sidewalk, in her overpriced heels and panic spreading across her face. But deep down, I knew this wasn't about Evan. This was about everything that came before him. That night, she came home like nothing happened. No apology. No awkward silence. She dropped her keys on the counter, kicked off her heels, and started scrolling on her phone like we hadn't just ripped a layer off our marriage hours earlier. I waited for something, an explanation, a bit of shame, anything. But all I got was, I'm exhausted. As she walked past me in her usual oversized t-shirt, the same one she used to wear when she actually wanted to cuddle. I don't think she even looked at me. I barely slept. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling fan, listening to her breath shift in rhythm beside me. Something inside me wouldn't rest. You ever have that feeling? Like your gut is dragging you by the hand towards something you really don't want to find, but know you have to? At 3:14 a.m., I sat up. She was out cold, curled away from me. Her phone was on the nightstand, glowing from a notification. For the first time in months, it didn't ask for Face ID. She must have turned it off at the cafe for easy access. I didn't want to look, but I did. It was a message from Evan. Still thinking about what you said, and yeah, I feel the same. I just wish things were simpler. My chest tightened. I stared at it like maybe I'd misunderstood. Like maybe it was about a project or some joke from earlier. But the thread went back weeks. Long threads. Paragraphs. Inside jokes. Photos. Nothing explicit, but way too familiar. Her smile and those selfies looked softer. Not the forced smile I'd been getting. These were the kinds of smiles she used to save for me when we were newly married and still curious about each other. Then I found the one that really broke me. Sometimes when Nolan talks, I just zone out and imagine it's you across the table. She said that. My wife said that. About me. In a text. To another man. I didn't smash the phone. I didn't yell. I just set it down like it burned to hold it. I walked out of the bedroom and sat on the floor in the hallway, because somehow sitting upright felt like lying to myself. I don't know how long I stayed there. She never even stirred. She didn't know I saw it. And I didn't know, yet, just how far this had already gone. I didn't bring it up the next morning. I couldn't. My chest felt too tight, like if I said anything out loud, it would become real in a way I wasn't ready for. Daphne was in full autopilot mode, making toast, scrolling her phone again like it wasn't a weapon, and I just watched her. I didn't eat. I barely moved. I just sat there, running over the words I'd read on that screen like they'd tattooed themselves onto my brain. But then, out of nowhere, she said something that made my stomach twist. You okay? You've been quiet since yesterday. Quiet? That's what she noticed? Not the fact that her husband looked like he hadn't slept. Not the tension in my jaw or the fact I couldn't even look at her directly. No, she clocked that I wasn't talking, and instead of concern, it felt more like a subtle accusation. Like my silence was the disruption in her perfectly curated morning. So I said it. Just one word. Evan. She paused. Just for a second. Not shocked. Not guilty. Just still. Then she set her coffee down and gave me this look. Flat. Expressionless. Calculated. Like she was already choosing which version of the story to feed me. What about him? That's when I realized she wasn't going to lie. Not because she respected me, but because, in her mind, it wasn't even wrong. I stood up and grabbed her phone off the counter. Unlocked it. Scrolled to the thread. Held it up in front of her. You zone out when I talk, I said. And imagine him. Her eyes flicked to the screen. Then to me. And again, no panic. Just that same dull, neutral stare, like I'd interrupted something minor. And then she shrugged. I was venting. Venting. Venting to a man she's emotionally attached to. Laughing with him. Touching his arm. Telling him things she used to tell me, back when we were still trying. I wanted to scream, but instead I whispered, how long? She didn't answer right away. She actually looked bored. Then she said, it's not like that. We've never even kissed. The fact that she thought that made it better nearly broke me. As if betrayal had to be physical to be real. As if the 1,000 ways she gave herself to him emotionally didn't count because lips hadn't touched. She actually wanted points for not cheating the traditional way. I backed away like she was radioactive. You don't get to define what this is, I told her. Not anymore. And then I left. No plan. No wallet. No destination. Just this gnawing thought in my head. She didn't even try to deny it. I didn't go to work that day. I didn't go anywhere, really. I just drove. Highway to back road to gas station to empty overlook, windows down, phone off. I must have stared at that valley view for hours, thinking if I sat still long enough, maybe the pain would settle into something manageable. It didn't. Instead, I kept replaying her face over and over. How calm she was. How unapologetic. Like she wasn't just done with the marriage. She was bored of it. Eventually, I turned my phone back on. 5 missed calls, none from her. My boss. My sister. One from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. But then it buzzed again. Same number. This time, a text. Hey, this is Lydia. I know this is random, but I think we should talk. It's about Daphne. I didn't recognize the name. At first, I thought maybe it was someone from her office. But something about the tone felt too personal. I called back. A woman picked up, sounding hesitant but firm, like someone who had made peace with what she was about to do. Before I say anything, I just want you to know. I'm not trying to start drama, she said. I stayed silent. She continued. I dated Daphne. Years ago. It didn't end well. My heart sank. I'd always known Daphne had past relationships, but she never once mentioned dating a woman. Not in 7 years. I didn't even know she could lie that deeply. Lydia said she'd seen Daphne in a photo recently, smiling next to Evan on someone's Instagram story. It jogged memories. Old patterns. She said she wasn't surprised Daphne was back to her old ways. Daphne gets close. Intimate. Emotional. But she always needs an escape hatch. Someone new. Someone she can make feel special while disconnecting from the person she's supposed to love. I asked her, voice shaking, did she cheat on you? There was a pause. She didn't need to. She just replaced me while I was still in the room. It hit me like a punch to the gut. That was exactly what I'd been feeling. Replaced. Not screamed at. Not dumped. Just quietly phased out. Lydia warned me, gently, that Daphne was good at rewriting history. She'd make me look crazy, clingy, controlling. That she'd play the victim if I confronted her too directly. She did it to me, Lydia said. And to the guy before me. Just be careful. Don't let her twist this. I hung up the phone and just sat there, staring at nothing. The betrayal suddenly felt bigger than just Evan. It was who she was. This wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a pattern, and I was the latest casualty. The next day, I showed up at her office building. Not with a plan, not with a speech, just with this boiling need to see. To look these people in the eye. To figure out if I really had been walking around like a fool while they all whispered behind my back. Daphne hadn't texted once. She hadn't called, either. We were now 2 days into the silence, and I was starting to realize she didn't miss me. Maybe she never had. I waited across the street until I saw someone I recognized, Melanie. She was in one of those group photos Daphne had shown me on her phone months ago. Glasses, floral dresses, always smiling. I knew she and Daphne worked on the same team. I approached her carefully. She looked surprised, nervous, even. I'm sorry to just show up like this, I said, but I need to ask you something. Off the record. She hesitated. Is this about Daphne? That was all the confirmation I needed. Yes, I said. And Evan. Melanie closed her eyes for a second, like she'd been bracing for this moment. Then she looked around, lowered her voice, and said, I probably shouldn't be saying anything, but people talk. Talk? I asked, already feeling dizzy. They've been weird for a while, she admitted. Him and Daphne. Staying late together. Going to those client dinners, just the two of them. People assumed you knew. I laughed. It wasn't even real laughter. More like a broken noise trying to escape my chest. No, I didn't know. I was just at home cooking dinner like an idiot while she was out falling in love with someone who didn't even know how to spell her last name. Melanie looked at me with this kind of sad sympathy that made me want to scream. Like she felt sorry, but not surprised. Then she said something I'll never forget. You're not the first husband who's come looking for answers. And you probably won't be the last. That sentence alone nearly knocked the air out of me. I felt hollow. Like the entire relationship had been one big, curated performance. But I'd been the only one who thought it was real. I didn't go home after that. I couldn't. I ended up at my friend Greg's place. Sat on his couch, staring at a blank TV screen while he asked if I was okay and offered me a beer I didn't drink. I couldn't even answer him. My marriage wasn't just falling apart. It had already fallen. Quietly. While everyone else moved on and left me sitting in the ruins, still holding the blueprint like we were going to fix it someday. And Daphne? She was probably with Evan. Probably laughing at some dumb joke. Probably not thinking about me at all. 3 days. That's how long she stayed silent. No texts, no missed calls, no dramatic let's talk. Just nothing. Like I'd disappeared from her mental landscape entirely. And I let it happen. I didn't chase her, didn't confront Evan, didn't even go back to the house. I stayed on Greg's couch, barely sleeping. Phone flipped screen down on the table because every vibration made my heart skip. Hoping it would be her, dreading that it would be her. Then, on the 4th night, she called. I didn't answer at first. Just stared at the name. Daphne. Like it still belonged to someone who loved me. She left a voicemail. Her voice was cool. Too cool. Hey, I think we should talk. There's some stuff we need to figure out, especially before the lease ends. The lease. Not our marriage. Not the emotional bloodbath she'd left behind. Not I'm sorry. She was calling about logistics. Like we were splitting a gym membership, not a life. I called her back, jaw clenched so hard it hurt. She picked up on the second ring. What do you want? I said, skipping the pleasantries. I think we need to be adults about this, she replied, like I was the one who'd gone off the rails. I've been staying at Kira's, and I don't plan on coming back. So we should talk about who's keeping the place. I couldn't believe it. No emotion. No accountability. Just strategy. Like she'd already flipped to a new chapter while I was still bleeding in the margins of the last one. I asked her flat out, "Are you with Evan now?" There was a long silence. And then, the line that shattered what little hope I had left. "I'm figuring things out. Can we not make this messier than it has to be?" That's when it clicked. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't confused. She was managing me, trying to keep things neat, controlled, reputationally clean. She didn't want closure. She wanted compliance. So I gave her the one thing she didn't expect. "No problem," I said flatly. "You can have the apartment." She paused. "Really?" "Yeah," I continued. "Because I already removed my name from the lease. The landlord knows. It's yours now. You're welcome." That's when her tone shifted. The panic slipped in. "Wait, what? Nolan, what did you?" "I packed up everything I cared about days ago. Hope you enjoy figuring out the rest." I ended the call before she could say another word. I didn't yell. I didn't plead. I didn't ask why. I just let her sit in the same silence she gave me for 3 days. For once, I had nothing more to say. It took her less than 12 hours to show up. I don't know if it was panic or ego or just the shock of losing control, but at 8:42 the next morning, she was standing outside Greg's apartment, ringing the buzzer like it owed her money. Greg looked at me from the kitchen like, "What do you want me to do?" I told him to let her up. She walked in like she still had permission to be part of my life. Confident, flawless, acting like this was just another rough patch to smooth over with a firm tone and some fake maturity. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't even look around, probably afraid to see how little of her was left in my space. "You blindsided me," she said, like I'd broken some unspoken rule by walking away before she could rewrite the narrative. "You could have at least told me you were planning to disappear." I stood there, hands in my pockets, waiting. I wasn't angry anymore. Just done. She finally sighed and sat on the edge of the couch, rubbing her temples like I was exhausting her. "You know, I didn't plan for any of this," she said. "Things just got complicated. Evan wasn't. He wasn't supposed to be a thing." I nodded slowly. "But he was. Because you let it happen." She looked at me, for once without that mask of detached calm, and whispered, "I messed everything up." That should have been my cue to lean in, to soften, to ask if she wanted to fix it. A year ago, I probably would have. 6 months ago, I would have begged for it. But standing there now, I realized something that shocked even me. I didn't want her back. I didn't want to fix something that had only ever worked when I ignored the broken parts. I didn't want the version of her that could emotionally erase me and call it venting. I wanted more. For myself. And I didn't even know what that looked like yet, but I knew it didn't look like her. So I told her something honest. "I hope you figure yourself out, Daphne. Truly. But you're not my responsibility anymore." She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She just nodded, stood up, and walked out. No dramatic goodbye. No final dig. Just a door closing behind her for the last time. And somehow, it felt like peace. That was 3 months ago. Since then, I've started therapy. I went back to school part-time. I even joined a hiking group, which, if you knew me, you'd know is basically a cry for help. But it turns out, walking towards something is better than sitting in the wreckage of what you lost. And last weekend, I grabbed coffee with someone from that group. Her name's Elise. She doesn't know much about my past yet, but she listens. She laughs in a way that feels real. And when I speak, she leans in, like my words matter. It's early. I'm not rushing anything. But for the first time in a long time, I'm not looking back.